this is Steven from Just Got Played, and over the next few weeks, I'm going to be telling you about my top 100 card and board games of all time, as of January 2022 anyway. In this video, I'll be telling you about numbers 100 through 76. Now, to tell you a little bit about the kind of things that you're going to see on this list, I like kids' games. I like playing games with my kids, but I don't have those on the list. That would sort of be a separate list. There are games on this list that are maybe higher on the list because I also play them with my kids, so keep that in mind. My rating is also greatly influenced by the group that I play with. So you'll see a lot of games on my list that play at higher player counts, 5, 6, 7, 8 players, because that's what my group likes to do. We also like to play games that are not really too long. So you're going to see a lot of games in here that play in 60 to 120 minutes. If you want to make your own list rating of games, I want to recommend PubMeeple. So PubMeeple made this great ranking engine, and I use that to help me make this list. So go check that out. All right, so let's get to the list, starting with number 100. First up, we have The Big Idea from Cheap Ass Games. So this is really one of those games that is more like an activity than a game. What you're doing in the game is you're taking cards, and there are these adjective cards and these noun cards, and you're creating some ridiculous product and then coming up with a sales pitch to get people to invest in your product. There is a game in there where people can invest in the product and get lucky and try to get a bigger payout and etc. in a scoring system. All that's fine, but what actually makes the game good is just the put these things together and make a ridiculous sales pitch. I think they even made a subsequent version of this game that doesn't even have those game elements in there. It's just the put things together and make a sales pitch. But anyway, it's a fun activity. My friends and I always have a good time when we play this, and so that's why it's my number 100, The Big Idea. All right, for number 99, we have Expedite. So Expedite is a Ticket to Ride style game. So you're collecting cards of different colors, and what you're trying to do is you're claiming these different cities along the map, and then you have destination tickets. And to score those destination tickets, you have to travel over whatever route you want to get from point to point. If you own the cities on the route, then you don't lose any points as you traverse between them. But if you do sort of claim a route ticket, you use somebody else's cities to get there, they get the points instead of you getting the points for that leg in the journey. So you could score points, a lot of points for yourself and a little points for one of your opponents if you want. Another thing that you can do is you can actually steal the cities from people. So ones that are diamonds are more expensive. Ones that are circles or medium expensive, I think, and squares are just the cheapest. And the more often they're stolen, the more expensive it gets for somebody to subsequently steal it again. This is a good game. Again, I said in the Ticket to Ride vein, I wouldn't play this with kids because it is sort of mean. But if you want the Ticket to Ride experience, just playing with adults, and you want to try something new, I would recommend giving Expedite a shot. There was a Kickstarter version of this that came with twice as many destination tickets. I recommend getting a hold of that if you can, if you want to play the game a lot, because it's a lot harder to memorize 108 destinations versus 54, I think, and so you won't necessarily know what somebody is trying to do. But anyway, Expedite, my number 99. At number 98, I have Medieval Academy. So this goes from 2 to 5 players. I do play this one with my kids. And if you see the board here, there's a lot of different configurations for how you can play the game. So each one of these boards is double-sided, and they subtly change how the game is played. But what you do is you're drafting a hand of cards each round. There are 6 rounds. And then after drafting a hand of cards, you're going to go in turn order playing those cards. So for instance, if you drafted a sword card, you can play it on either the white knight or the black knight area to move your marker up. Or you can play the books to move up on the scholar track, or you can give some money to the beggar to move up on that track, etc. These different tracks all do different things, and they also score at different times. So, for instance, and it's a little hard to see here, this one will score every round, the first through sixth round, but also the track will reset after the third round. So if you jump out to an early lead, that might get you points for, say 3 rounds before it resets. This track, which is, I don't know, we call it the princess track. I can't remember what it is, chivalry or something. Gallantry, maybe. That's probably it. This one actually allows the people in the default side to manipulate the other discs, move their other discs up. So that's an interesting one. Some of these tracks, like the dragon track and the beggar track, they don't score till the end of the game, but you get a ton of points for being sort of the lead person slaying the dragon. Or you lose a lot of points if you are the one who donated the least money to the poor. This track is sort of the same way. As long as you're not in the last or next to last place, you won't lose any points. And this track is not quite as competitive as the others. As long as you get to this point, you get some points. As long as you get to that point, you get extra points. So you can see there's a lot of different things going on here. It's a drafting game. I play it with my kids since they were probably about 6 years old, and so it's a good family game, and that's why it's my number 98, Medieval Academy. All right, number 97, something a little bit heavier, Dwellings of Eldervale. So Dwellings of Eldervale is from Luke Laurie. I like Luke Laurie a lot. You'll probably see several of his games on this list. But it's a very complex game. There's a mishmash of a lot of different things going on here. So you've got workers that you place out on the board, and you have workers that you can essentially upgrade. You can get this wizard or dragon or knight, and depending on your player board, 2 of your workers do something special, and you're using that as worker placement on the board, but then it's also sort of area control, because you can build a dwelling of Eldervale in the area to score some points, and so you fight over those areas, and there's dice rolling, but even when your people die, that can give you a benefit. And these you build this map actually as the game goes on. You put out these tiles, and these epic foes come out, and you fight those, and you can go to the portal, I think it is, that gives you these cards which allow you to sort of power up a little bit of an engine building thing. And so there's a lot of things going on here. I like pretty much everything about this game. I think it would probably move up higher on my list if I just got to play it more, right? I need to spend more time playing the game, I think, to appreciate it more. But yeah, it's a really solid game. And so my number 97, Dwellings of Eldervale. So next on my list at 96 is Flashpoint Fire Rescue. This is a cooperative game that goes up to 6 players. I'm not actually a huge fan of cooperative games, mostly because my group, I guess, doesn't really like playing them quite as much, so I don't get to play them so much. I don't have anything against cooperative games, but I really like the theme of this one. I mean, you're fighting a fire. There's building, there's fire tokens, there's smoke that can turn into fire. There are these tokens, which are people you need to get in and rescue. You can drive the ambulance around to get the people out into the ambulance. You've got a fire engine here. We can use the deck gun to sort of put out a lot of fire at one time. These are all markers where the doors have been blown up, or a fireman has chopped through the wall to try to get at something. Not sure what's going on here, but it doesn't look very good in this one. I mean, there's fire everywhere, and the building looks like it's collapsing. So yeah, you're just trying to, rescue people from a fire. So that's a really good theme. It's a really good and fairly simple from rules standpoint, cooperative game. But everybody does have their individual role, which has some unique ability, which makes it pretty interesting. So yeah, number 96, Flashpoint Fire Rescue. At number 95, I have The Networks from Formal Ferret Games. So again, 1 to 5 players, 60 to 90 minutes. You'll see this is usually the sweet spot for me. But in the networks, you are a television network, and you're trying to fill your sort of 3 prime time slots, I guess, in the evening. And so you've got to put a show at a different spot, and you can attach stars to that show. You can attach ads to that show, and you're trying to get the most viewers. And shows will age over time, so they might get more popular over time. I think you'd see this one goes up, and some of them get less popular over time. I mean, eventually they'll get less popular, and you'll sort of want to replace them. And they tell you whether you can attach a star or an ad to them. But what I like about this game is, well, one, it has a nice sort of sense of humor, and I like the theme of putting these shows on at your television network. But when you start around, there's actors out there, the different stars up here, there are ads out here, there's shows that you want to produce, and there's that tension because you're just, I want all of these different things, but what am I going to take right now? Because what's not going to be available when the round comes around to me again, and there's also these cards down here. It can be very beneficial to you. These event cards, I think they're called. They can be very beneficial to you, or they're very detrimental to your opponents too. So, you definitely want to claim the thing that's most valuable, but maybe the other thing you need to make that thing work won't be there when it comes around again. And you want to be the first to finish your actions for the round, because then you can drop and budget, which gives you a bigger budget for the next round. So there's a lot of, just that decision like, what am I going to do before somebody else takes it from me? I like that in games, and I think it's really well done in here. So number 95, the networks. At number 94, I have Roll for the Galaxy. So I'm a big fan of Race for the Galaxy. I'm also a fan of dice games. So in Roll for the Galaxy, you have there's a whole bunch of different cards. There's technologies and planets, and then of course there's a bunch of dice. So you can see all the dice here. So you build up a pool of dice that are in your cup, and you get some of those dice out of your cup, and you roll them behind your shield, and they have different faces, and then you can decide how you want to allocate or change up those faces, and deciding to do an action, deciding what actions happen for everybody, and then you get a benefit for doing them. So it's got all of those different things going on, and you're basically in a race, to get to end the game and have built the most, settled the most planets or developed the most technologies or whatever. So it's got it's got that nice tension from sort of racing to get to an endpoint, and then combined with the dice pool, which I really like. So I think it's probably the dice pool is what I like about this game, which makes it land at number 94 on my list. At number 93, I have Kingdom Builder. So Kingdom Builder is a game I just sort of stumbled into because of Donald X Vaccarino. I won a prize, and I had to go pick something off the prize table. I'm like, well, I recognize that designer, right, from Dominion, so I'll give this game a shot. And I actually really enjoy it. It's got variable setup in that you've got these different boards that you can configure in different ways. And then you have 3 of, I forgot what these are, but these are essentially the scoring cards that tell you how points are going to be scored during the game. And there's a lot of different versions of those. And so what you're doing is your decision is really simple on your turn. You've got a card that you've got to play, and it shows a type of region, right? These flowers or forest or plains or desert, or canyons, maybe these are called. And you have to play in that area that turn. And the other rule is that if there's an area that's already bordering one of your huts, you have to play next to that. So there's this subtle strategy of sort of finishing it out an area so that maybe you can build in a different area of the map, depending on the scoring conditions. Or maybe you want to get into an area and surround something to cut somebody else off from access to something. There are incentives to build around these palaces, maybe I think they're called, for points. But there's also incentives to build next to these things because they give you extra abilities that you can trigger every turn, whether it's moving a hut or placing an extra one or something like that. So it's a really simple game in that, hey, I just need to play some huts on this card, this terrain type for this card that I'm holding. But it has some interesting strategy to it, and there's a lot of expansions for it too that make it interesting. I actually like to play it at the higher player counts that are available. So anyway, that's my number 93, Kingdom Builder. So number 92 is a game that's relatively new to me, The Isle of Cats. So I'm actually not a big cat person. If it was The Isle of Dogs, I might like the game even more. But the cats definitely, the theme does work here because you've got the cats all sort of laying out in these different orientations, very cat-like. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to rescue these cats from this island. And you've got to fit them onto your boat somehow. So you're trying to fill up your boat and fill up rooms and cover up the rat spaces, and you're drafting these cards, and the cards give you ways to score points at the end of the game. You might be picking something that everybody can score. You might be picking something that's just a private goal for you to score, but then you've also got to get fish tokens, because fish tokens are sort of the currency that you need to buy the cats, and then but you also need a crate to capture the cat. And so there's a lot going on here, but and there have been a lot of polyomino style games released recently, but this one sort of resonated with me, and I think it's because of that, the fact that the scoring mechanism is just cards that are in the hand that you're drafting. So choosing public or private goals that way. So anyway, that's why it's my number 92, The Isle of Cats. My number 91 is NEOM. So NEOM is interesting, and in fact, I would probably have it higher if they changed something about the game. But anyway, in NEOM, you're trying to build this city, and you're going to draft tiles over a series of rounds. And I think there were 3 sort of epics or ages or something, and you draft several tiles in each one of those. And they have to connect to the roads, and some of them have requirements about what you need to build them, but then they also have things that they give you, and there's income, and there's a lot of interesting decisions. There's some 7 Wonders type stuff here, not only that it's a drafting game, but I can buy resources from the people to my left and right and sort of pay for those to get them if I'm not making them myself. Making resources in this game is actually victory points, as well as something that's useful to you in the game, though. So you probably want to develop those when you can. There is this disaster mechanism in the game, which a lot of people, and not just me, don't really like about the game. But it's something that could be removed at a lower player count. You can take out there's 1 disaster each of those sort of epics. But then there are buildings that are meant to sort of mitigate the problems from the disaster. So you have to take those out or change the scoring of those too. And so I don't know. I felt like there was a really solid game here, and somebody felt like just throwing in a take that element that didn't belong. And so you can't it's not very easy out of the box to play without it. But there are some variants suggested by the designer on BGG. So if the game sounds interesting to you and you've been shying away from it because of that weird take that mechanism, then I would suggest giving it a shot anyway. It's actually not as bad maybe as it sounds, but also there's ways to sort of remove it from the game. Anyway, even with all that said, it's still my number 91, NEOM. So my number 90 is Skull. Skull is 11 years old now, and Skull is just a very simple game. You just have this hand of coasters, right? You have a skull and some flowers, and you just go around the table, and you're putting them down and saying how many cards you think you can turn over before a skull is revealed, and then at some point, somebody calls you on it instead of sort of raising the bet themselves on how many they think they can turn over, and then they can turn over their own, or they can tell people to turn over the top one from their stack or whatever, and you just have to turn over as many flowers as you said you were going to do without hitting a skull. And so there's, it's all about reading people and bluffing, and it's just so ridiculously simple. I think how easy it is to teach and to play this game, and the components to the game. It's also simple, I think, is what I really like about the game, and made it my number 90. All right, my number 89 is Biblios from Dr. Finn's Games. So Dr. Finn makes excellent sort of small, short games, and this might be my favorite from him. I think it probably is. So in Biblios, it's got this sort of two phases of play, and in the first phase, you're drawing cards and determining who you're going to allocate them to. So you are ultimately you're going to draw, one more card than the number of players. So say you've got two opponents, you're going to draw a card, and without showing it to anybody, you're going to say, "Oh, am I going to keep that card, or am I going to assign it to the public pool with my opponents, or am I going to put it aside to be auctioned later?" And so I have to put one of those cards in each of those slots during my turn, right? So I have to allocate one to each of my opponents, or one to the auction area, or one to myself. And you have to do them in order, right? So you draw the first card and you're like, wow, that's pretty good. I would like that in my hand. Am I going to take that, or am I going to sort of press my luck that a better card is going to come up that I could take? Or maybe I'll put that in the auction pile later so that I can maybe get it in the sort of second round auction instead. That's the main, decision, right? In the first part is the sort of pressure luck. And some of those cards change the value of these dice. So there are dice here, but it's not a dice game. Those are just markers. You don't roll these dice. You can move their values up or down. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to have the most in each one of these categories to win the die at the end of the game. So after you go through that sort of first round where you've allocated out the whole deck, everybody's going to have a bunch of cards, and you may have money in your hand as well. And then you're going to, all the cards that were set aside into the auction pile, you're going to one by one start auctioning those off and using money to get those cards. And if those cards could be the ones that just sort of improve the set for you, or they could be the ones that, increase or decrease this, or you actually can discard cards to get money cards that were in the auction pile that you would then turn around and use in one of the subsequent auctions, or as the tiebreaker at the end of the game. But again, yeah, you're just trying to get majority in multiple of these areas, hopefully, and to have manipulated the dice in those areas so that they're worth more. And then that's how you win the game. And, real simple, 30 minutes or so, and the game's going to be over. So yeah, my number 89, Biblios. 88, we have BasketBoss from Sawali. I've heard rumors that this is going to get a reprint, and I hope so, because, there's nothing really wrong with this production, but I would pay money for a new production that had better artwork. So I like simulation games. I like building a city, running an empire, running a galaxy, whatever it is, but I like sports simulations too, running a soccer team, running a basketball team. Usually I do that kind of stuff on the computer. Usually board games and sports simulations don't work together very well, but BasketBoss I really felt did justice to running a basketball team. So, you get 5 starting players for the different positions, 2 forwards, 2 guards, a center, and you have that team, and the players get better or worse over time. You're competing against the other players to see, to win trophies each season. You have to, and you get new players each season as well. And that's, you're drafting new players, and there's an auction mechanism, and it's just a really solid game, and it's pretty quick to play. And like I said, I hope they make a reprint, because that's my number 88, BasketBoss. And my number 87 is Cascadia. So Cascadia is a relatively new game, 2021. And you can see here that what you're doing is every turn you're drafting a combination of a tile and an animal. So then you have to decide where you're going to put that tile and where you're going to put the animal. But the animal can only go on tiles that support specific types of animals. So you might draft a combo like this, where there's a salmon which you can't actually put on this tile when you place it, but it doesn't matter. You can place it somewhere else in your area that you're creating. And there's always 5 types of animals. There's like a bird and a fox and a fish and a moose and a bear. But each time you play the game, you can have different scoring ways that they score, right? They can score for being in a group or surrounded by other things or in a straight line or something like that. You also can get points for building sort of largest areas, like largest area of desert or mountains or something like that. So, and it's interesting, you're not totally hamstrung. You have these, I don't know, are they pine cones, maybe, which allow you to do some things like wipe some stuff if you don't like what the choices are, or switch, what animals would associate with which tile. It was a puzzly game in a good way. When I played it, I've enjoyed sort of the trying to decide, well, what should I go after? Well, I should get that now because I'm not going to get a chance to do it later because my opponent's going to take that. And here's the pattern I'm trying to build. Can I get the things for my pattern? So if you like that kind of thing, check out my number 87, Cascadia. So my 86 is Wingspan. You may have heard of it. Sort of a popular game. You can see BGG's overall rank of 23 right now, and number 1 in the family category. I don't know if I would really necessarily consider a family game, but that's all right. In Wingspan, you are building your aviary up with all these different birds, and you have 4 actions that you to choose from on your turn. You can play a bird, so you can put a new bird down here, or you can do one of these actions across the side, which I guess, I don't know, it's the Polish version, maybe. So your choices are here, as you can get food from the bird feeder here. So there's sort of random, because those are dice, what's available in there. You can get eggs, so you can put eggs on your birds, which you need to lay. You need to use those eggs to put new birds down, or you can draw cards. Cards, of course, are the birds that you need to put in your area. And there are different scoring objectives. You have some private objectives. There are some public objectives, and you use those to get points. And there's points for like eggs are worth points, and the birds individually are worth points. And it's an interesting game because it's an engine building game. When you activate, when you do one of these actions, you do what is the furthest right uncovered thing, or furthest left uncovered thing here along the row. So as you put more birds down, you're leveling up that action, but then also after you do that action, you're activating all the birds in sequence that you laid down. So you've got this kind of engine that can build there. That mechanism I have found is actually sort of confusing to people. So I wouldn't really use this as a gateway game. I think some people do because of the theme. To me, I haven't had a lot of success with it as a gateway game. But once people do sort of get through that first game and then they understand how to play, they do want to play it again. So, it's a popular game, and, I enjoy that engine building aspect. And my family likes it too. So, that sort of adds to my enjoyment of it. My number 86, Wingspan. All right, so my number 85, this is another one of those games that is really an activity more than a game. I mean, there's a scoring mechanism, but it's loaded questions, and it's interesting because you're asking a question like, what does it say? What is your secret indulgent food? And everybody writes their answers down, and you try to decide who had what answer, and you get points, I guess, based on that. I wouldn't say it's a great game to play to get to know people, because you'll get answers back and you have no idea who said what, and you'll assign things to people. People might be like, why would you think I would like that? So it doesn't necessarily work that great that way, in my opinion. But if you're playing with people or family members, it's sort of fun because, you'll see things and you'll think somebody played something, but it was somebody else, and you'll learn some things about family members. And that's what I really enjoy about this game, right? You learn more about people that you already know and like, and that you're playing this game with. So again, I would say, do this as an activity with people and I think you'll have a good time. So that's my number 85, loaded questions. Okay, my number 84 is Galaxy Trucker. So Galaxy Trucker, 2 to 4 players. I think maybe you can get an expansion that raises up the player count. It takes about an hour It depends, I guess, really on how many missions you play in the game. This is interesting because it has this real-time component where you're just grabbing pieces and trying to assemble your ship, maybe peeking at some of the stuff that's going to come up along the way as your ship goes on this journey. But that real-time aspect makes it pretty interesting. You've got to get guns facing forward and off to the side to fend off asteroids. You've got to have shields to protect you from things that are going to try to slam into your ship. And you need batteries to power those shields. And you need engines to move you along faster. And you need cargo pods to pick up stuff you find along the way. And you need crew for your ship and to, I don't know, fight off pirate boarders. And so there's all these different things that you're trying to grab and put them together, and you've got to connect them properly with the right connectors, otherwise things fall off. And then you're going to go through, once everybody is finished building their ship, you're going to go through this series of missions doing things like I talked about, dealing with a meteor swarm or finding, I don't know, an abandoned something that has resources. And if you stop to pick up those resources, it puts you sort of back in the race to get to the destination. And your ship is going to fall apart while you're, making this journey. And that's okay, right? You can still win the game even if your ship is totally falling apart by the time you get there. It's just a hunk of junk and it doesn't really matter. So if you don't mind this silliness of watching this ship that you haphazardly, rapidly put together falling apart, through the journey, then you're gonna like this game. But if you're the kind of person just like doesn't like to see the things that you built get destroyed, then I wouldn't say this is the game for you. But it's fun, and you can play just one mission. A normal game is multiple missions, maybe 3, I think. But you could play just one mission to see if you like the game, and that won't take too much of your time. So I would say give it a shot. My number 84, Galaxy Trucker. My number 83, I have 10 Days in Europe here, but really it's a placeholder for all of the 10 Days series. I have 10 Days in Europe, and I own 10 Days in Africa, which have, there's a slight difference between how those two play. There's also 10 Days in the USA, which sort of plays like the Africa one, and 10 Days in North America, I think, that plays like the Europe one. But essentially what you've got is there's a map of Europe, and you draw a bunch of tiles and you stick them in the order that you draw them into this 10-day journey. You can't rearrange them. And the goal is, as soon as you have completed a 10-day journey that is valid, you win the game. So, for instance, we've got Sweden here. From Sweden, you could travel on the Atlantic Ocean to Germany. You can walk or bike from Germany to France. Then from France, you could go on the Atlantic. No, you can't go on the Atlantic Ocean to Slovenia. You could maybe go on the Mediterranean Sea, or you could actually walk France to Italy to Slovenia, right? So this is probably an initial draw. So every turn, you can sort of draw from the top of the stack blind, or you can pick up one of the 3 face-up tiles, replace one of your tiles, with that one. So, for instance, if Italy was out there, you could just take Italy, and now France to Italy to Slovenia. Great. Now you're in good shape. Slovenia isn't really anywhere near Finland, but what if we had something else that would allow us to go there? You could pick some other country that's nearby, like Austria, right? And airplanes go by color. So, for instance, you could fly, if this said Finland and then a yellow airplane and then Montenegro, that would be a valid journey because they're all the same color. You flew from one to the other. And the Africa one and the USA one, they use, instead of having boats, they have cars which stand in as a wild. And so that's basically it. I like this game because, well, it's quick and it's fun. It's just a little puzzly, trying to figure out, what is this mess that I've been randomly dealt? How am I going to straighten this out? And I can play with my kids. They learn a little bit about geography. Obviously, any map of anywhere is going to be out of date really quickly. But you can still learn something about the geography of an area. So any of the games in the 10 Days series, I recommend them. And so that whole family of games is my number 83. Number 82, I have Last Will. So Last Will has an interesting theme because you're sort of trying to lose. You're trying to lose as much of your money as you can. If you have the expansion, you're getting sacked. You're also trying to lose your job, and it's a worker placement game. You're putting these hats out here for the actions that you're going to take. Again, I said the expansion is good. The like plan order board or something, which is a promo, is good. A lot of games, expansions, promos, etc., don't necessarily elevate the game that much, but I really think they did with this one. But it's interesting. You're trying to you're trying to buy a house at a high value and then let it get dilapidated and then sell it at a low value because you're trying to lose your inheritance. You're trying to lose your job and lose your inheritance. Some people talk about this game in reference to that 80s movie Brewster's Millions, right? The rich uncle who wants you to blow a bunch of money. So, you're constantly doing things. I'm going to take my private boat out with a chef and my dog, and what does that cost? Or I'm going to have a reservation at a restaurant that I don't even go to, but it's a standing reservation, so I pay for it, So you want to just collect all these things that make you lose money, and whoever lost the most money by the end of the game wins. So it's a refreshing theme, but it's also a fun worker placement style game. So, if that sounds good to you, check out my number 82, Last Will. At 81, I have Survive, Escape from Atlantis. I have the expansion that takes up to 5 or 6 players, and I do actually like it playing at a higher player count, but there's this island here that's slowly disappearing, and each of you've got your meeples that are here, and they each have a different value assigned to them. Unless you're playing a variant, I guess, where they're this sort of count all the same. But normally they have a value on them, and you're trying to get them on these boats to get off to the shore or the edge of the map here to make them safe. And at the same time, you're trying to make sure your opponents don't succeed. So, you could use a whale to knock over boats. You could use a shark to eat any swimmers who've been knocked into the water. A sea monster will knock over boats and eat people. You see here, there's 3 of the same color meeple on this boat, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can jump on a boat with somebody else's meeples, and then they spend time moving the boat across, spend their actions to get the boat across, and you just get your person across for free, right? So there's all kinds of interesting things you can do, but it's really just sort of it almost falls in the party game category because everybody it's just panic and trying to sabotage each other, and it's just a fun time. I wouldn't say it's too terribly thinky, but everybody seems to have a good time when we play it. So it's my number 81, Survive, Escape from Atlantis. Coming in at number 80, I have Evolution from North Star Games. So this is, again, a stand-in for the whole Evolution series. Evolution Climate, Evolution Flight. I like them all. I can recommend all of them. It's an interesting game in that you are trying to evolve a species or multiple species over time, and that's a theme that you don't see too much in board gaming. And you win the game by collecting points. So what are points? So food that you collect here from the watering hole are points. So you want to get species that are large and can eat a lot of food, right? So you might want to play traits. Each of your species can evolve traits, which are cards you play. And so you could do that to get, more food from the watering hole. But the players also sort of control how much food goes in the watering hole. So if your species is too big, it could starve out. And so you could have a problem there, too much population, too big a size. But also, the other thing you could do is instead of eating vegetation essentially from the watering hole, you could just start eating other species. And you can get food that way. So you evolve a carnivore. And then, so say you have a species that, and someone has evolved a carnivore, and you don't want the carnivore to eat your species. So there are defensive traits that you can put on your species to sort of defend against the carnivore eating you, or you can evolve your species to be big enough that the carnivore can't eat it, or there's a lot of different choices. And there's cards in here for intelligence, which allow you to sort of defeat some of the traits of other creatures, and then your creatures can have a symbiotic relationship, and that one of your species helps another species in some defensive way, or when gathering food or something. There's just so many interesting and well balanced choices, and it's it's sort of a cutthroat game, right? You're competing over that food. You're competing to eat each other's species potentially, and just that decision where somebody just all of a sudden evolves a carnivore for the first time, and everybody's like, "Oh boy, who's going to get eaten?" It's it's an interesting moment, and so I love that tension and gameplay, and really just the balance in everything that's going on here. I think it was exceptionally well done by North Star Games. So my number 80, Evolution. My number 79 is Royals. And so in Royals, you're trying to claim different areas on the map. So it's sort of area control, I guess. But you do this by, you get cards, and you use those cards. You collect sets of cards, and you play those cards to get influence over different people in different regions of the map, and you score different points that way. And so I do sort of like area control games. I guess I hadn't really thought about it till I started thinking about some of the things on this list. That area control is an interesting mechanism that keeps popping up for me. I got this game as I think it was in the swag bag for a convention or something, so I wasn't really particularly looking for it, but I figured, all right, I got this game, so let's play it. And then that was fun. All right, well, let's play it with my game group too. Okay, that was good, and then 6-8 months will go by, and I'll be like, yeah, you know what, we should play Royals again. That was fun. So when I'm going through ranking these things, it's just kept bubbling up over some of the other games. I don't know specifically what makes this one different than the others. Maybe it's because the simple card play sort of dovetails into complex strategies or interesting competition. But we always have a good time playing Royals, so my number 79 is Royals. Number 78 is from Reiner, Knizia, and it's Decathlon. So Decathlon is partially interesting in that it is just a free print and play. There was never, that I know of, a published version of this game. You just go to Dr. Knizia's site and you download the game and you print it and you play. Really, you just need 8 D6s. Although I recommend, having more. If every player can have 8, that would be great. And there's 10 events. And you compete in all 10 of the events, and they are all just different takes on push your luck dice rolling. So if you like push your luck, then this is a free game. Just pause the video right now and go download and print this, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. My kids like it, my family likes it, my friends like it. We keep a world record list in the box where I keep the dice and the rules printed out. So over time those scores just keep going higher and higher. So anyway, yeah, go check it out. My number 78, Decathlon. At number 77, I have Dixit. So Dixit is another one of those games where sure there's a score track and sure there's points, but really you just sort of play for the experience. At least our group does. And so the way that it works is there are all these weird art cards. And if it's, your turn, you can describe the card that you're going to put into the mix. But you don't want other people to guess what your card is. You want at least one person to guess, but you don't want a lot of people to guess. So you can't be obvious, like just describe my card, like it's a lady holding a torch out of the water, right? Then everybody's going to pick my card if this is the one I threw in the mix. But at the same time, you can't be so obscure that nobody guesses your card, because you also don't get any points. So you don't get any points in those situations. So you have to come up with something, right? So this one was, what does it say? That was a very successful swimming lesson. And so the person who said that put a card in, and then all the other players hearing that statement, pick a card from their hand and put it in. And the idea is, if you're not the person, picking that statement, you want the other players to pick your card. So you want to put in a card that matches that statement, so other people will pick your card and you'll get some points. So I don't know which was the correct one here. I don't know which one was the original played with. That was a very successful swimming lesson. But again, it's interesting. There are ways to sort of play this game, to game this game. If you know one person sort of specifically, you can target them with obscure clues and you'll know that they'll only get it and you'll get maximum points, etc. Or, so definitely if you've got somebody who just is a real gamer and doesn't necessarily like party games, I wouldn't recommend this game. But if you like activities, I would say give Dixit a shot. And along those same lines, my number 76 is So Clover, which, I don't actually normally like word games that much. So I was a little surprised that this one I liked better than I expected to. It's a cooperative word game, which is interesting because just one is another cooperative word game that I enjoy. But basically what you do is you're given 4 of these tiles and you fit them into your Clover however you want, and then you put a description across each side. And that description is supposed to telegraph to the other players at the table how these tiles should be oriented. And so once you write the 4 things across the edge, you take the 4 tiles off, you take a 5th one out of the stack, and you mix all of those up, and you turn over the Clover with your words written on it and these things, and the other people are supposed to sort of orient them. And they get one shot at it, and you tell them, no, these weren't right, and you take out ones that were not right. Either they weren't in the right place or weren't oriented properly. And then they get a final shot at it, right? And then you see, okay, did they get everything? And this one's pretty good, right? I mean, fever and roast go with hot pretty good. I don't offhand see anything else I might have maybe put with hot. So, that would have locked those in pretty good. Oscars is an award, and it's pretty specific. And, first date. Okay, yeah, it's pretty good. So anyway, like I said, word games, not really my jam, but this one I really enjoyed. So check it out. My number 76, So Clover. All right, so there you have it. The first 25 games, numbers 100 through 76, in my top 100 games of all time. Have you played any of those games? Do you have any comments about them? Do you think they're garbage? Do you like them? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll, answer any of your comments, even the negative ones. And if there are games that are in your top 100 that you haven't seen yet, don't worry, I've got 75 more to cover, so maybe they'll show up a little bit later. But until then, thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please leave a comment or hit the like button. It really does help us out. If you have suggestions for future videos, let us know in the comments as well, and then subscribe to see what we come up with next.